John F. Kennedy, one of the most highly revered presidents of all time, famous for his youth, vibrancy, and self-assured attitude that charmed the hearts of Americans. Now, just a few decades after his time in office, we seem to automatically accept John F. Kennedy as an exceptional leader. We don't remember the mistakes he made. Taking a closer look, does John F. Kennedy really live up to that idealized image we have of him? January 20th, 1961. John F. Kennedy, the Democratic candidate, assumes the presidency by taking the oath of office and giving his inaugural speech. He reiterates his policy and gives his promises for the next 4 years. He is quick to say that it will require many years to achieve the goals.
All this will not be finished in the first 100 days, nor will it be finished in the first 1,000 days, nor in the life of this administration, nor even perhaps in our lifetime on this planet. But let us begin.
March 1st, 1961. As promised, Kennedy creates the Peace Corps by way of executive order. He asks R. Sargent Shriver to be director of the Peace Corps. Many months prior, he had explained this idea for the Peace Corps on his campaign trip. The audience was thousands of students from the University of Michigan, and they seemed very excited about the new idea. Kennedy is praised for creating such an influential and inspiring program as the Peace Corps, but it was in fact more so a political move than one of selfless service. Around the same time, the Soviet Union had established a program where their own people would help others and spread communism to places like Cuba. So JFK's decision to imitate the program was a way to stop communism and spread democracy instead. He also hoped this would create a stronger alliance between the United States and Latin America. By August 28, 1961, John F. Kennedy is meeting with the first Peace Corps volunteers who are heading to Ghana. The Peace Corps is still around today, and now it is truly about developing broken social systems as opposed to bringing political benefits in our own country. The Peace Corps lets our young people work for world peace and makes foreign relations that much better. The Peace Corps has grown much more than JFK could have ever envisioned. Since its establishment, the Peace Corps has had more than 200,000 volunteers and has aided over 139 countries. On May 25, 1961, Kennedy claims that by the end of the 60s, the US will send a man to the moon. This is a very bold move, considering the fact that the technology is not ready yet. This wild statement inspires everyone to think big and support the space program. We eventually win the space race by July of 1969, with Neil Armstrong being the first to walk the moon, but JFK dies before he can see this come to reality. On August 13, 1961, East Germany builds a wall to divide Berlin and divide communism from democracy. After World War I, the Allies claimed West Germany and the Soviets had the East. The Soviet Union encouraged East Germany to build the wall because they wanted to keep the capital in their control. The US and Britain and France had Allied control over West Germany and believed they had the right to Berlin, despite it being in East Germany geographically. 2 months before the construction of the wall, JFK had met with Khrushchev, the Soviet leader, to try and come to an agreement. The building of the wall showed their failure to work out a solution. The wall was devastating to Germany because it stopped Germans from traveling and leaving the country. Families were separated and trapped by the wall with no way to get through. Kennedy wanted all of Germany to be a democracy, but he did not want to engage in a war with the Soviet Union, so he didn't send an entire army. However, he did send ambassadors and some troops over as a symbol of power. Unfortunately, the Soviet Union was not eager to come to a democracy just yet. Only in 1989, when communism was dying, would the wall eventually come down for good, and the border relaxed. On October 16, 1962, the White House learns of Soviet medium-range ballistic missiles being activated in Cuba. A Republican, McCone, had warned of the danger of the Soviets, but everyone seemed to disregard it as paranoia. Still, this is a mistake on the Kennedy administration for not being prepared. As the problem pursues, and JFK seems to be delaying any action on the matter, he is criticized even more. Many people, and Congress, want a strong, immediate military action, but JFK wants to use force as a last resort. John F. Kennedy eventually decides and makes an announcement telling the American public about the decision to issue a blockade of Cuba, along with a plan for diplomacy. After a successful blockade of Cuba, and an agreement with the Soviet Union, the crisis has been settled, and the US narrowly misses being attacked and engaging in full-on nuclear warfare. This is considered one of Kennedy's greatest accomplishments. March 28, 1963. The March on Washington takes place, where Martin Luther King Jr. gives his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Kennedy was criticized for not taking a strong enough stand for civil rights. He had won the presidency partially due to the support of African American voters. But he did not want to take too much of a definite side for fear of losing Southern Democrat support. His most decisive action for civil rights was in June, when he gave a speech in response to the governor of Alabama refusing to obey desegregation in universities. After this, he worked closely with civil rights leaders who convinced him to support the march. Some of the main march organizers were A. Philip Randolph and Bayard Rustin. After the demonstration, Congress failed to act as soon as they hoped, but Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act in 1964. Throughout his time in office, Kennedy sent 28 proposals to Congress concerning areas for improvement such as unemployment, equal housing, education, public health, and the environment. John F. Kennedy was a Democrat, and he definitely leaned more towards the left liberal side. This is evident by almost all of his actions. For example, he preferred increased deficit spending for government programs, he tried to bust big business, and developed the Youth Conservation Corps, all liberal-minded ideas. Despite JFK's great accomplishments during his time as president, he also made some poor decisions. The Bay of Pigs invasion was a huge blunder for America. The Bay of Pigs invasion was a series of assassination attempts on Fidel Castro's life. Castro was Cuba's communist dictator and a main target for the U.S. The attacks were complete failures, and it made people question JFK's experience. Of course, the suspicion was dropped after the way he handled the Cuban Missile Crisis. When Kennedy became president, Vietnam was in disarray because of the power struggle between communists and the anti-communists. Eisenhower had not solved the problem during his time in office, so JFK was left to deal with the problem. He did not want to get too involved, so he sent advisors to help the anti-communists without it looking like the U.S. was fighting. When he was assassinated, the problem was then Johnson's, and he had a similar plan to Kennedy, but unfortunately it got us involved in the Vietnam War. Although it's hard to believe, Kennedy only won by a margin of 0.1%. This close race was because many Americans felt that he was the underdog due to his age, Irish ethnicity, and religious ties. The appearances of Kennedy and his opponent, Nixon, played a big part in the public opinion as well. American voters who watched the presidential debates on the television saw that Kennedy looked calm and collected on camera, so they claimed that Kennedy had won. Those who heard it on the radio thought Nixon won the debate. More people tuned in to watch the televised debate, so this may have made the election for Kennedy. After elected president, his popularity decreased in the South due to his position on civil rights. For this and other reasons, many people did not like Kennedy. Some thought he was far too liberal, and others thought he was not liberal enough. Nowadays, we find it hard to believe that anyone could dislike Kennedy. Sadly, Kennedy was assassinated at such a young age and at the height of his political career. For this, some even treat him like a martyr. John F. Kennedy is one of the most highly regarded leaders of all time. He was a revolutionary in that he was the start of a new era in politics and the start of a new generation in America. He was the youngest president, first Irish American president, and the first Catholic president, all major changes to the political scene. Now, despite his shortcomings, Kennedy was an exceptional president. His leadership and legacy still have an impact on us today. The new ideas he promoted and the programs he created still exist and continue to serve us. The Peace Corps is an excellent example of John F. Kennedy's legacy and how he took the initiative, following through with all of his promises. Many famous leaders are so highly respected because they are not afraid to defend what they believe in. JFK exemplifies this leadership quality because he took action on very controversial issues such as civil rights, foreign relations, and education. JFK's role as president has become a paragon for leadership throughout every field and nation.